all things continually lead back to serpents, dragons, fairies, Nephilim, and fallen angels.
In the distance looms a mystical mountain.
As Mike Heiser used to say, if it's in the Bible and it's weird, it's probably important.
At its peak, a great fire burns, concealing the Prometheus lens.
This development of this knowledge that's being talked about within the mystery schools.
An ancient artifact said to reveal the hidden truth within a deliberately darkened world.
There is a hidden history that's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world.
Join us as we travel and explore the vast unknown. It's a hero's journey with dragons to slay, damsels to save, and innumerable treasures to hoard. Torches high.
The Smithsonian, they caught wind of a giant skeleton, who would send their agents out to get it.
But it takes courage to move forward, to move out of the shadows, out of the unreality that we think of as reality.
We are all on the hero's journey.
Mankind has been in contact with and influenced by extraterrestrials.
Leave the sentient mound of bull feathers out of it.
You know, look at it from a different perspective.
Well, Andrew's already showed us the route of the Exodus, what he believes to be the route of the Exodus, give us the backstory of Ron Wyatt and his discoveries and how he found this site. He's already led us through the Gulf of Aqaba, and now we have landed on the other side. And now we're going to take a close look at the Mountain of God. So, Andrew, thank you, man, for all your time, and I really appreciate it. These slides are amazing, by the way. I really appreciate it.
Glad to be back and to share. Yeah, this is the Exodus journey. You're getting, all this in 1 hour segments. It's taken Ron Wyatt and others many years to research. And, nowadays I've been on the ground doing many trips, driven probably over 30,000 miles now, up and around that area of Midian and ancient Egypt. So it's great to be able to put all this out there for others to learn, since a lot of people can't come out and see these sites in person. But I'm glad you're able to share it with your audience. So I'm happy to be here. We're looking now, as you mentioned, we're continuing the Exodus route. So we're going from the Red Sea crossing inland, and the big focus right now will be the Mountain of God, or Mount Sinai. Where was it located? Now, again, a lot of these topics are very involved, dealing with the pros and cons and different theories out there. Instead, we're kind of giving you a high-level view of why we think this route matches the biblical account. And so we're not going to spend much time dealing with what other people think. You can research that on your own, or we could do another video about that. But, this is kind of a high-level view of the Exodus route, and showing, via videos and mainly photographs, why we think this is the real route of the Exodus. So moving right along, if you look at where we're going to Mount Sinai. And you can just look in any Bible dictionary or the back of your Bible. There are many proposed locations for Mount Sinai. And here they mention at least a dozen. Now, I've visited a bunch of these sites. In Saudi Arabia alone, I've seen 5 or 6 different proposed Mount Sinai sites. I've climbed on a number of them, not all of them. And then in Egypt, I've seen at least 3 sites that are proposed. And then we even have a couple sites in Jordan and in southern Israel in the Negev. So the reason why we have all these sites is this knowledge was lost. Where did the Israelites go after they left Egypt? That, we know that Elijah went to Mount Sinai, and probably Paul did. He writes about, Sinai being in Arabia. Some say even Jesus might have done it when he went out in the wilderness. But at any rate, by the time of the Middle Ages, this dark period in Western civilization, the knowledge was lost, and what you had proposed as these sites for pilgrims to go to were usually wrong. And so these traditional pilgrimage sites set up by the Catholic Church or other people turned out not to be matching with the biblical account. And so it's very exciting to be in a place where we know Midian is located, but to see these sites match perfectly with the Bible, it's amazing. So if you can afford it, come on our tour, or if you even can't go on our tour and you want to go on your own and save some money, we can show you how to do it and get you out there, and you can explore on your own. But let's continue on our Exodus route here. So we left off at the Red Sea crossing on our last episode, and so now we're going to continue. And we talked about how, like, which way do they go when they got out of the water? When they went through the Red Sea. This area has a couple wadis you could go through to get off the Red Sea crossing and to get inland. Now, in the biblical account, it says they went 3 days looking for water, and they found bitter springs or bitter water that they couldn't drink from at Mara. And so we need to find a site like that. Now, I personally don't believe you can find Mara today. I think it might have been a seasonal water area or something that is no longer around, because most springs and most of these oases in Northwest Arabia, you can drink the water there. There's a couple of sites where you have both drinkable and non-drinkable water. But we're going to look at a couple sites that people have proposed to be Mara, and they do get filled in with water during like major storms, especially in the springtime, which is the time of the Exodus. So we talked about this. We talked about them going through the Red Sea. So I'm going to quickly go through these slides. And then coming out on the Saudi side, here's one of our vehicles. We rent these Toyota Land Cruisers. They have a little refrigerator inside them. They're great for exploring the desert. They're four-wheel drive vehicles. And anyways, we went off from the Red Sea. Now, there are two big valley systems, or wadis, that'll take you off of the Red Sea into the heartland of Northwest Arabia. And here's the verse I was talking about, where in Exodus chapter 15, the Israelites leave the Red Sea and they start complaining almost right away because they look for 3 days for water. And when they finally find the water source, it's bitter water, or, brackish, undrinkable water. And now if you look at this map, now the blue is kind of everywhere. This is, maybe even 4 years ago. But the blue is everywhere I explored, driving and walking. So I've been up a lot of these canyons and valleys, just checking out, see how the Israelites would have, if they came this way or not. The Red Sea crossing, it's right there, the red arrow is. And so the rest of that is the land of Midian. And that's, you can see where I've driven all over there. And then at the bottom the far bottom right side is, you can see Mount Sinai there labeled in yellow. And so what we're looking at is how to get down to where the next water sources are, especially Elim, because we know that one had good water. Now, you can either go north to the town of Aqaba. Now, some have proposed that to be Elim, which is in Jordan, or you can go south. There's basically no big oasis inland. So if you go south, you have to go through some of these canyons following the coastal mountains, which we believe is the name Shur, because Shur means wall. So we believe Moses was naming, or the locals had named this area Shur because of these coastal mountains that form a natural wall between the inland area and the Red Sea. And so there, again, we talked about there are two places where you can go, off the Red Sea crossing. You can try to go north, but you're going outside of Midian. Basically, you're heading towards the Promised Land. You can try to go south, where I have these two arrows with a question mark. Now, I know, I think it was the Caldwells who suggested this one. I'm not exactly sure why, and I have not asked them, but it's an impassable route. If you go south along the Red Sea crossing beach, you end up at a place where they don't let you go. They said they'll open it in the future, but it's a blocked off road. But this road is a modern road that's carved into the mountains. And you can see just from the drone photo there, and this guy driving, a friend of mine actually got past the gate once and drove quite a ways down this coastal road. And it's carved into the mountain. So if you were to take away that road, there'd be no place for the 1 to 2 million Israelites and their animals to walk on this coast.
You can even see the rock.
Here's a drone video. Yeah, it's just the mountains go right to the edge of the water. So the Israelites did not go south from the beach; they had to go inland. And so this kind of shows you. Now again, they're going to be opening that road in the next couple of years, they say, and the Neom is building some hotels along there too. some of the valleys that lead to this. But so we're going to just, again, here's the Red Sea crossing, and we're going to focus in on how to get down to the next big oasis, which some believe to be Elim. And this is called Wadi Taibism, which means Wadi of the Good Name. And it's a canyon oasis, very beautiful. It's kind of small these days, but we're going to even suggest that if the Israelites were spread out and the oasis was spread out more, 3,500 years ago, that it's possible that it would fit. Some people say this is Mara. Again, we're looking in the biblical account. You have a number of campsites before they get to Mount Sinai, but these names have been lost, and so you have to use logic and walk the ground and check things out. To see, maybe local traditions to see if they would fit the biblical account.
That's one thing I was going to speak on, because we did a Bible study on this a while back, and I put some notes on it because it kind of stood out to me. It's in Exodus 15 and verse 27. It says that, Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the water. So when you had that pulled up there, that's what I was thinking that this was talking about. But what I thought was interesting about that, and I have a tendency to go too deep on some things, my wife tells me. But, that word Elim, that means, the gods. So it's like they came to like the place of the gods, and it says, and there was 12 springs. And I know there's a lot of symbology and symbolism, in Hebrew tradition, and where it says, there was 12 springs and there was 70 palm trees. 70. A lot of times when you see in the Bible, it's not saying there was literally 70 sons, or 70, whatever. Yeah. That's just a number for totality or all. And but I had seen that, and I was like I said, I have a tendency sometimes to look too deep into stuff, but I was like, it's kind of like a return to Eden kind of symbolism here, because you're going back to the place of the gods. There's 12 springs, and that's the 12 constellations of the zodiac, a whole, a set, and then the
12 sons of Jacob,
and then the 70 palm trees. Means, all the trees. And when you read in Eden, it was talking about, every tree was in Eden. And some people even say that they believe that the trees were symbolic for the angelic beings, and that the angelic beings was supposed to sustain and look after us, but we took from the wrong tree, But you were saying that word is been lost.
So Elim well, it's interesting. If Wadi Taibism is Elim, and let me just show you, you can kind of see in this map, which I was trying to highlight the different names on the last couple maps that mention a similar form to Mara, because, once they leave the Red Sea, they have to get to a place where there's bitter water. And there's some new data that we've come across that a friend of mine has proposed, and even others suggest that's probably true, or it's possible. But the place called, let's see if it's on this map. Let me zoom out. It's called Al-Sharaf. And I don't know if I have it circled here. Let me just see. I got to move things around on my screen to see it. Yeah. I don't know if can you see my cursor? I don't know. I see it moving around.
Yeah, I see it.
Oh, you do? Okay,
I was sitting there talking away, and I had my mic muted. My bad.
Oh, okay. Well, so right up here is called Al-Sharaf at the top of this map. And so one of the main wadis that lead off the Red Sea crossing goes to a plain, and then from that plain you can go down this kind of a descent, and it goes into this canyon, or this open area here where a number of canyons feed down into, and it fills full of water, but the standing water is not like, I don't know if you could drink it. It looks very disgusting. And we were just there after a storm last month and filming this. I did actually film it with the drone. I'm going to make a video, but my friend makes a really strong case that Al-Sharaf is actually the area for Mara. And so if that is the case, then the next oasis is Elim, that would have clean water. And so when you're going south, especially along the coastal mountains, along their eastern side, you come into this canyon system that leads to what they call Wadi Taibism, or Wadi of the Good Name. And so if Elim, I didn't study the name Elim out. I didn't know it meant that. But maybe it possibly is referring to the good name of God, like, God's name, and this is a good area, an oasis of Elim being Edom, because you have 70 palm trees and 12 wells. So just 70 being, as you're saying, this, the totality. So you have a lot of palm trees growing in this canyon oasis. And let me just show your audience, we get through these other maps. So after they leave Mara, they come to Elim, and we just read that verse in Exodus 15:27. And so it's a famous site. The bouncy palm tree shows it where it's at in Arabia. But here's a photo of the site. When our second or third trip there to Arabia, one of the locals, we were at the tombs of Jethro, they call it, and we kind of talked about that earlier. These are Nabatean tombs in Al-Bada, the heartland of Midian. Anyways, when we were at that tomb site, one of the locals came up and said, "Hey, you guys need to go check out." He spoke English. He's a Saudi guy. He said, "You need to go check out Wadi Taibism." And he said, "This is where he said Musa and the Yehudites, Moses and the Jews, they came through, and they had a tradition that the canyon split open for the Israelites to come through from the ocean, from the Gulf of Aqaba." Yeah, I don't think that happened there, but at any rate, they were still placing Moses and the Jews in this canyon oasis, and it's a very beautiful site that's now they're going to turn into a nature preserve with a couple hotels in there. Here are some drone photographs of one. It's a whole bunch of oasis. So now there's like 3 main sections. But again, if you look at what it could have been 3,500 years ago, maybe spread out all up and down the canyon and not just right in these 3 sections. And it's spread out. And so what's really crazy, coincidence or not, you have these modern wells, maybe marking the spot of ancient wells, but there are 12 of them if you were to count them. And so you find them scattered throughout these 3 big clumps of trees. And now here is kind of a map, because some people will use this against the Wadi Taibism being Elim. It's a popular theory that Elim is the site, but they'll say, well, that's a lot of canyon area. So for the Israelites it's a small canyon area for the Israelites to camp in. So if you do the math and measure the acreage in Google Earth, it is actually not, you do have to spread out, but again, we don't know how big the actual water source and these palm trees were. They're all just down on one end like today, or it's more spread out. But that area there is about, so if you look at Nueva is 7,000 acres. If you look at this area I marked off, and it doesn't have to be all that area, because Nueva had to fit the Egyptians and the Israelites. But if you were to count this whole purple area I measured off, that's 9,000 acres. So it's even more than the Red Sea crossing. And then, of course, if you look at where the Israelites, let me go back to this slide. This green over here, where Mount Sinai is, and if you don't count every, basically take the whole area, even though inside there they have hills and ridges that you wouldn't camp on. But this whole area right there is 17,000 acres at Mount Sinai, the east and south plains, which I'll have photographs of.
And you got to put yourself in their position too. Remember, they were just complaining about how hot it was, how miserable they was. They couldn't find no water. If they found a place that was, green with trees everywhere, had water,
they'll make it work.
This is good. We'll squeeze in if we got to.
Yeah. If that audio came through, I'm going to mute the audio of this video, but this will just give you a visual impact of this beautiful oasis. We like spending lunch there, and people go explore the oasis, maybe count the wells, hike the canyon. It's a beautiful site. Oh, and right near it, right on the edge of a couple of the sides of this oasis, there are ancient Midianite ruins. So you're looking at like stone houses, the ruins of it, and pottery. So, this oasis was an oasis all the way back to the time of the Exodus. Again, I would suggest it was a lot bigger than it is now. and that it is doable for people to camp in the canyon.
Yeah, that's
But
beautiful.
again, you can see some of the wells down there. This is a drone shot that's kind of pulling straight up. And here's one that's twirling around towards sunset, golden hour. So you got that nice orange glow. Yeah, and the rocks around it have this orange hue to it. Some of them are black and orange, and then you have the blue sky. So it's just a beautiful combination of colors with the orange, black, and blue, and then the green. Yeah, it's if you can imagine coming across this after Mara, yeah, you'd.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah, this is paradise, brother. I'll take it.
Yeah.
That might have been even the root of the name.
Yeah.
You know, this is the land of the gods.
Yeah, I'd have to check on that. Yeah, the Saudi name, and it goes way back even before the country of Saudi was formed. It was called Wadi Taibism, but think of the good name. Ism is name, and Taib is kind of like you can say okay or something's good. You say that's great or good. They'll say Taib. But where did that come from? Was it just because it's such a beautiful valley you come across after a hot desert journey? Anyways, what's really interesting. So again, if you look at these, the route we're proposing, there are some questions about could they fit all the Israelites or how they get down to this place. I think there are answers to them, but the main points are matching. Like you have this oasis for water that could be Elim, just south of the Red Sea crossing. And if you go south again from there, like a day's journey, Numbers 33 was list all the campsites of the Israelites. It says after Elim, they camped at the Red Sea. They left Elim and camped. And you'll notice that Hebrew word or theme, moved and camp or set out and set up camp, depending on what English translation you're using. But it's that just shows the movement of the whole Israelites. They'd get to a spot and they'd camp. Now, it doesn't mean they camped overnight. And some nights they didn't set up a camp. They might just be huddled, sit down by a rock for a couple hours and keep going. But where they did set up a camp,
for a month or
they
two.
could have been there for a week.
You never know.
Yeah, exactly. Because you have, if you look at even the traditional Mount Sinai, that location, and you know from the biblical account, they either took them 45 days or 60 days, depending on when they arrived at Mount Sinai in the third month. They left on Passover, or the day after Passover, so that's the middle of the first month. So that gives you 45 or 60 days. But you don't have 45 or 60 campsites. So it wasn't like a campsite every day. And Numbers 33, when you add them up, I want to say it's 10 or maybe that's I think it's 10 or 11. I can do it right on the top of my head. So you go from Goshen to Sukkot. So Sukkot is their first camp. Then Etham, the Red Sea. So that's 3 to the Red Sea crossing. When they leave the Red Sea, they camp at Mara. So they go 3 days to Mara. Then they go to Elim. And then in Numbers 33, it says they camp at the Red Sea again. And then from there, there's they go into the wilderness of Sin. So campsite number 7 is the wilderness of Sin. And here, Exodus chapter 15 or 16,
that was the name of a god. That was the thing that I talked about last episode.
Yeah.
Derek Gilbert, he said we had him trapped between the wilderness of Sin. That was an Egyptian god. And then you had Baal's upon
was
the
he a god out
of,
there too?
The water.
Yeah.
So they were smudged between two of their gods.
Oh yeah. And these names, because they're going through these pagan countries and whatever. So you kind of like you're going to use the name that the locals call it. Just like today, if I drive through France, I'm not going to rename everything. I'll be like, okay, that's Paris. That's whatever the names are of these local sites. So the Israelites are wandering through this area, and so I think it says in Exodus, definitely in Exodus, but I don't know about Numbers 33, but it says that when they get to the wilderness of Sin, they were gone 30 days. So that's the next key chronology. The others, nothing else is listed except for 30-day mark, and then when they arrive at Mount Sinai, it says they arrived in the third month on the self-same day. So we have 7 right now, and then we have Dovka and Alush, and I could be mispronouncing those or get the order backward, but that's 8 and 9. And then number 10 is Rephidim, the split rock. And that's the last campsite before they get to Mount Sinai and camp for 11 months. So you have 10 campsites just to get to Rephidim, and then they leave Rephidim, and then they get at Mount Sinai. So Mount Sinai is campsite number 11, and the wilderness of Sinai it's called. And so, again, so you have, just to get to Rephidim, you have 10 campsites, even the traditional Mount Sinai, or you can look at Jebel Makla, Jebel Allah's area that we're looking at, it shows that the Israelites did not every night camp, and they didn't move. So they definitely stayed at some sites, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. If you have a good water source, you got to relax before you do your next journey through the wilderness with no water. And so maybe at Elim they stayed a little longer. And then now what's interesting about Magna, this is where we're at now. This is this coastal town that just south of this Wadi Tayyibism, this canyon oasis with the 12 wells. Well, you come to an interesting site called currently Magna, and it has on Google Maps the well of Moses there. There's actually 12. In the past they claimed there was 12 springs. Right now you can count maybe 3 or 4 of these springs bubbling up. But it's quite an extensive oasis, lots of palm trees, and there's a big fortress going all the way back to the Midianite time frame, overlooking the oasis across the valley. So, they were protecting this water source. Now, some people say this is Elim, and that Mara would be the other site. But at any rate, there is a strong tradition of Moses coming here with the Israelites. And this is the place I was talking about earlier, where the guy, the Ottoman cartographer making maps, 300 years ago, he came to this site and they showed him the rock that Moses struck near here. So again, you have this tradition of Moses and the Israelites being in this area that's outside of the Sinai Peninsula. So it's really interesting. And these are just photographs of that huge oasis. And some, if you angle your photo just right, you might think this is, as I say to people, you might think you're in Hawaii if you send this to your friends. It's a really beautiful site.
And Andrew, anytime you need to get a drink, buddy, you get one. I can edit all this stuff out.
Okay, yeah, I keep forgetting we're not live. Maybe after this next block, I will. Yeah. Okay, so from here, the biblical account mentions that they go into the wilderness of Sin after they camped at the Red Sea again. By the way, if you look at your map and you notice that they talk about leaving the Red Sea and then they journey for, they go to Mara, Elim, and then it says they're at the Red Sea again, camping. That should give you a clue as to the direction the Israelites are traveling. If the Gulf of Aqaba is your Red Sea crossing, that means the Israelites are either going north towards Jordan, Aqaba, or going south in the land of Midian, because they didn't go inland, because somehow by the third campsite, they're at the Red Sea again. So that kind of gives you a direction, like a hint, as a directional travel. And then the other thing that's interesting is that when they leave this site, now they're in the wilderness of Sin. And again, as I mentioned, the Bible, Moses gives them a time stamp. He says, okay, we're 30 days out. And that's when the Israelites start complaining about, they're losing resources. They don't have enough. So when you look at the wilderness of Sin, it's possible it's this area that's just south of El-Bada. And I don't have a map of, let me just back up a little bit. Well, so Magna's at the bottom left corner. So just south of there, off the screen, this area of Saudi Arabia opens up to a huge flat area, and there's no water there. And you can kind of understand if they were to journey through that, that they're complaining about their resources drying up, after they leave Magna. But it says they camp 3 more times. So from the Red Sea crossing camping, it says they go from there to the wilderness of Sin and camp, and they start complaining. And then Numbers 33 lists 2 small campsites that's not mentioned in the book of Exodus, and that's Alush and Dovka. Nothing much, I guess, happened there that Moses did not write about it in Exodus. But then after that, it says in Numbers 33 and the book of Exodus, they get to Rephidim. And of course, that's a very special site, because at the Rephidim is where not only do they complain about water, but God miraculously provides it by telling Moses to strike the rock of Horeb. And so that's a really special site to see in person. When I was here on my first trip, or there, I should say, in 2016, this was besides climbing to the top of Mount Sinai, being at this rock and seeing it for the first time and just imagining what God did for the children of Israel, it was, I don't know, it was a very special site, and it still is. I love being out there exploring or just relaxing at the shade of the rock. There's a lot you can say about the rock from a spiritual standpoint, how it represented Christ. But in the book of Exodus, chapters 17 and 18, are 2 chapters dedicated to the stories of what happened at Rephidim. And so we have a couple of key things. Number one, when they get there, this is kind of off the beaten track. Like you have to turn off a canyon to get to this spot, and there's a huge plain all the way around it where you can camp and where you can fight the Amalekites. And you're at the western side of Mount Horeb. But the first thing that happens in the biblical story is when the Israelites get to Rephidim, they complain about no water. And so this is a lower elevation than where the Israelites encamp in front of Mount Sinai on the eastern side, a 5,000-foot elevation, a high desert, but cooler temperatures in the summer. On this western side, it's always hot, and it's like maybe 2,000 or 3,000 foot elevation at the bottom of the mountain there. And besides lack of water, Moses strikes the rock, and then it says in Psalms that rivers of water comes out. So you have a ton of water feeding the Israelites, and we don't know how long they stayed there, maybe a week, but it flowed through the encampment. So you have this rock that God is using as a symbol of Christ, and it's giving water to all the Israelites and their animals. And then the next thing that happens is the Amalekites show up. Now these were distant cousins of Amalek was a distant cousin of Israel's Jacob's children, and so the Israelites. But I guess they lost their way because they were not worshipers of the true God, and they were kind of like bandits, these warriors. And they started attacking the Israelites when they came into this area. It says in Exodus that the stragglers, those who were taking their time, the older folks maybe were children, I don't know, but those further back in the train of Israelites, this long line of people walking through the desert, they get attacked by the Amalekites, and so it says Joshua the next day goes out and fights them. This is where Moses, he has to hold his hands up in the air. And then he gets tired, and then they start losing. And so then Aaron and, his brother Aaron and Hur, they hold it up constantly until the Israelites win. So that all happened at Rephidim. And so then the third thing that happened
and
here.
one interesting thing, I want to throw this out because my fans
is,
will be mad at me if I don't mention this.
Okay, no problem.
The Amalekites, that was a giant clan.
Okay.
And even the name Rephi.
This is really.
Rephaim.
Yeah. They were giant. Yeah. So, this is really interesting you brought that up. And again, I've never seen this, but I have an Egyptian friend who's helping us research. He's a Christian. But he reads Arabic and he knows English. So he can go through the Saudi literature. And he said in the area of Magna, it's not at Rephidim, but it's in this area, you can basically say, of Saudi Arabia. They found, and they labeled it as Amalekite graves. And the guy mentioned in the Saudi report that they were giants. They don't say how big or anything, 6 foot or 15 foot. But at any rate, it's interesting you brought that up because they were associating the giant graves that they had uncovered near Magna as being Amalekite graves. And that fits the story of them going through this region and the Amalekites attacking them.
That root word, too, it means long-necked people. Because, especially my elongated skull over there, my Peruvian skull, I've heard doctors and stuff talk about those skulls and break them down, like L.A. Marzulli when he went down to Peru and tested all those skulls and was saying that the cranius magnum is pushed back to the back, and that even with the head binding skulls that we've found that we know is from head binding, that cranius magnum doesn't move. Head binding doesn't do that. But these skulls they're finding down in Peru, the magnum is pushed back. So it's saying this is genetic. This is not head binding. But it's so big and so heavy that if you mounted it, especially with its position on a modern neck, it would just look straight down to the ground. It'd be so heavy they couldn't control it. So he said, and that goes along with the biblical narrative of these guys, the long neck people, because it would take a longer neck to withstand the weight and balance of that elongated skull.
I don't have a photo in this slideshow, but I do have, I think it's on my YouTube channel, some of the short videos I've been doing. We went and uncovered, or a friend showed it to me, this rock art site that's very near the base of Mount Sinai. and it has painted figures. So they're very rare because painted ones usually don't last too long and aren't preserved. But these were preserved because they were under a rock. So we crawled under this rock, and you have these elongated neck, like you have like their it's maybe the artistic style too, but you have the legs, the hips, and then you have this skinny long neck with the arms. At first, I was looking upside down. I thought it was like a tripod, but it was actually the long neck and the arms like this. So you had the three. But when you mentioned the elongated neck, I immediately thought of these red painted figures that we saw painted near Mount Sinai.
And red,
very fascinating,
was a big correlation with these giants, especially when you get into the Indian traditions and stuff. They all talk about battling red-haired, six-fingered giants.
Yeah, I remember someone posted about that one back in the.
Then you had the association with red with Esau.
Wow.
And
yeah, and we're looking at Ron White when he had when he found that pillar on the Saudi side, he claimed that he mentioned Edom,
the red people.
So by then the Edomites had taken over. They had taken over some of the Midianite territory by the time of Solomon.
And the Edomites built Petra.
Yeah, so all of that is this. Yeah, and all of that's in this general area, southern, Jordan up into northern, northwest, Saudi Arabia, and this is here are photographs of the split rock area. You can see how dry and desolate it is, and as we talked about, the people complaining about, we don't have any water. And it was interesting because it says in the Bible that God tells Moses, stand. Let me see where I think it says it. Yeah. He says, "Behold, I will stand before you there at or on the rock at Horeb." The rock at Horeb. And I underlined that and bolded it here on the slide because, when you're there, the whole area, let me just go back. You can tell there's no trees hardly. I mean, there might be some acacia trees here and there. There's no water, but it's full of rocks. So when God's telling Moses, this is like the whole area of Northwest Arabia is like this. So wherever you want to put Rephidim, God tells Moses, hey, stand by the rock or on the rock or at the rock of Horeb. Like the rock of Horeb, like which rock are you talking about, God? And so it had to be something special that stands out. Like, that rock, okay. And it's interesting, this huge rock here is known. You can see the people. I kind of marked it here with little stars. But you see on both sides are little people standing. It's about 70 foot tall. We have now exact 3D model of this rock because we did with the drone. We flew around it and took thousands of photographs. And so using photogrammetry software, it can recreate in 3D the whole hill and the rock it's standing on. And then you can measure it or 3D print it, make scale models or whatever. But we were able to measure it. And so it's 70 feet high from the base of the rock to the top. And then it's on a huge hill. So it's really impressive when you're there. And here's the verse I was talking about in Psalm 78. It says, God made streams come out of the rocks, caused waters to flow down like rivers. I should have also underlined the very first part of this verse. In verse 15, it says he split rocks in the wilderness. Some people will say, Moses didn't write about God splitting the rock. So, why would he, the other translations say claved the rock. So, why are you looking for a split rock? No, it actually says in Psalm 78, so whether this was David writing or someone else, someone later on writing about the Exodus experience knew that, the Holy Spirit is giving them this to write. They knew that the rock was split. And this is what you find, a huge, giant 70-foot split rock on a giant hill overlooking. And when rivers of water come out of this rock and flow down, based on how it's situated in this western side of Mount Horeb, all that water flows out through the encampment because the elevation changes until it gets down into the middle of the wadi. And so with the Israelites camped far out in those plains, the water would have flowed through the encampment and they could easily get water for as long as they stayed there. Here's a little, let me turn off the audio. Here's a little 30-second drone montage.
Yeah, I seen that online. I loved how the sun cut right through the center of the stone. That was a beautiful shot.
These are all morning shots when the sun's right that way. Yeah, these are sunrise shots. Now, this is a sunset shot here. But the rocks are what do you call it? At the base, it's really interesting because they're very smooth. And you can see erosion channels and marks. Now, of course, naturally, there's wind erosion there, and the type of rock is very flaky. And so, you'll get natural erosion. But if a whole bunch of water comes out, like rivers of water for a short period of time, you're going to get sped up erosion. And so I don't think just because there's also natural erosion going on in the region, you can use that against this. It just means that there's more erosion. Now we're coming into the home run here, the final stretch. We are at Mount Sinai. So now we're on the east. We're on the eastern side of the mountain range. And all these other events we've been talking about, Elim, Albada, Jethro's home, Rephidim, the Split Rock, that's all on the western side of the mountain range, lower elevation, a more desert, hot climate. On this other side, it's totally different for this area. It's high desert or a wilderness. There's lots of bushes everywhere. It's bearable to live out there. And so that's what we find even today. And the Bedouins have a little village there now. But when you think of Mount Sinai, of course, the biggest thing when you mention Mount Sinai is the people. They think, that's where God, gave the law, the 10 Commandments on stone, and also spoke them from the mountain. The whole mountain shaking. You can think of like the Charlton Heston movie, the 10 Commandments. And so, this is a very special location. And in the book of Deuteronomy, especially, now also in Exodus chapter 19, it talks about the whole mountain being enveloped by smoke and the fire burning at the top and the smoke rising like the smoke of a furnace to the very heavens. So, in a way, almost, it does, you could say it kind of look like a volcano in your mind without the lava and all that.
Or the ancient aliens, this was a UFO descending down in a spacecraft. Zachariah's itching.
But if you think about it, they were so scared that it wasn't just some like a little fire up there like a burning bush the first time Moses saw it, like he walked up to see what it was. No, this was such a scary sight that the Israelites and hearing the voice of God, it was like this thunder and lightning, that they ran back to their tents and fell face down, like they didn't want to hear or see God. They didn't want to see the fire on the mountain. Even Moses, he wrote what is it, Hebrews 11 or 12. It talks about Moses being scared himself. He was called up into that fire, that supernatural fire, to talk to God. It was quite a special event, and I just can't imagine. We have a little video on our YouTube channel that tries to recreate it. We have some CGI animation with the fire, and then we have the thunder and the sound of the trumpet. But I'm sure it was 10 times as more. What's the word?
Fascinating, breathtaking.
My name's Nick. I'm the owner of Kevlar Joe's, and I'm the roaster. I'm an Air Force Security Forces veteran, a dad to 3 wild boys, and a husband to my wife, Crystal, and a coffee enthusiast. From a family in a small town in Missouri, we started with the simple idea of crafting a perfectly bold cup of coffee. Inspired by wellness and countless pots of stale coffee while deployed, we wanted to craft a bold, clean, and smooth coffee. So we did. And we realized we wanted to share this coffee with our friends. Lord knows we could all use a good cup of coffee right about now. From the farm to your coffee cup, there's nothing like a good, well-crafted, and bold cup of coffee. No matter what time of the day, it's there to pick you up, motivate you, and relax you. We hope you enjoy our coffee. Be bold, be humble, be Kevlar. And you can find Kevlar Joe's Coffee Company anytime you want at www.kevlarjoe.com. Enjoy.
Guys, what's up? Tom Dunn here from Through the Black. We have launched our new ministry outreach, No More Dead Babies. And the website is nomoredeadbabies.com. We want you to go to that website and get a free t-shirt, okay? We want you to join the movement, okay? We need soldiers to step up and say that they're gonna be a voice for the voiceless, okay? Guys, we've never done anything like this before. This is a big deal, and I don't know who all is ready for it out there, but it's time to step up, okay? And we're asking you to go to the website and order the shirt. The shirt is free, but you gotta pay for shipping, okay? We're gonna ship it out to you as soon as we get it. You tell us what size you need, and then we're gonna send you the t-shirt, okay? Join us. The goal is to get thousands of these shirts out. Keep pushing this. I think this boldness can be contagious.
Hey, what's happening? What's up? Hold out that glass, because we're going to fill it up. Welcome to Prometheus Lens Podcast, the place where the conversations are always enlightening. I just want you to know I appreciate if you're seeing this. You obviously watch my content. You enjoy my content. So please like, comment, share, subscribe. And if you are not already a member of the All Access Pass, I encourage you to go over and sign up. It's quick, it's easy, it contributes to the show, helps me to produce the content that you enjoy, and you get all kinds of great perks. You get 48-hour early access to all episodes, members only episodes, you get membership to the private community, and then you also get monthly chats, and then you get also monthly Q&As with authors and other great speakers. So come on over and join us on the hero's journey, guys.
Yeah, fascinating, magnificent, 10 times more dramatic than what we could recreate in our little video. And, the voice of God came out of that fire. Deuteronomy 5:4. Deuteronomy chapter 5 and Exodus chapter 19, it mentions fire over and over that was up on the mountain. Here's a good photo of the two peaks. Now, there's a mountain to the south, just off the screen right here. It's called Jebel Haifa. And there are people who say that that's probably also part of Mount Sinai, because you see that one from the southern plain where the Israelites could have been camped, and it makes sense. So you have these three big peaks, kind of share the same mountain base, and all of them have this dark rock. Now, just to be clear on the dark rock, let me first here's more photographs. So here's what's interesting: the name. So Makla, there's some people say it means quarry. But you find on Wikipedia, and even I talk to locals, they say Makla means like a frying pan or burnt, Jebel Makla. And that's the one everyone climbs up, the mountain peak, especially the southern, they call it Lesser Makla. But I've climbed up both those southern and northern peaks. But the mountain to the south, Haifa, they have a name for all that black rock that covers all those peaks. And in Arabic, and I'm going to mispronounce this, but it's something like, and I have it there in the red or on the screen. It says al-Muharrak, and that means burning, or kind of similar to Makla, but it means like this burning or burnt look. And it's interesting, and I should have put a photograph from my phone up here, but there's a restaurant at the base, at that gas station that Ibrahim runs. And there's a little restaurant there, and the sign, and they have the split rock. I think they're trying to appeal to the tourists now, but they have a little restaurant, and the split rock is their logo. But the name of the restaurant is Al Muharrak Restaurant. So it means like, fire or burnt restaurant. I don't know if that, hopefully the food's not burnt, but, this
really
name, and I asked the locals, what is this?
Wings.
Like, why are you calling it? Well, I don't know what they have, because I'm too afraid to eat at some of these little places. That would actually be cool. We've thought of kind of a joke, but like having a cafe at the Golden Calf altar called the Golden Cafe.
Burgers.
You get like Aaron coffee or Moses coffee. I don't know. But at any rate, when I talk to the locals, like, what does Muharrak means? They told me, it means burnt or burning or fire. It refers to that top part of the mountain because it looks that way. You have that black basalt rock up there. I do want to say something. Everyone is always, it's fascinating, the rock. And, it does stand out when you're there. And I always bring back like little pieces for souvenirs for, especially those who can't climb up. So I give them pieces. So every trip I'm always taking a bag of rocks down to the top.
There's your new business model.
But regards.
It rocks.
Yeah, the last thing I can see people attacking me for that. You're going to destroy the mountain if everyone took a rock. The whole mountain's rock. But anyways, I just want to say this, though, that what we don't know about the rock being black, what we do know, in the past, when we first saw the first photographs from the Caldwells of this mountain, and then even Ron, when he saw it, even though he didn't have photographs, that's the most impressive thing. Like, it stands out when you're driving along. Oh, there's this mountaintop and it's all black rock. Now, we do have, like Dr. Glenn Fritz and others, they have tested the rock. It is a known volcanic type of rock called basalt. Basalt is a black rock. The rock below it is another type of rock. It's not like basalt, different color. No, it's granite. But on top of the mountain, what most people don't realize, and I put a couple videos up already, some shorts, nothing long, but the granite you see at the bottom, the different color rock, it does have veins of that going through the summit. And you have grains or veins of white rock called marble. And that's where you get that white marble stuff at the bottom by the altar of Moses, the pillars and all that. They're white marble. And that marble veins are at the very top, slicing through the black. So a very simplistic view that the rock was another color and then the fire god scorched it. It doesn't fit because you're getting granite that's still granite color, it's not black, and you're getting marble up there that's white. None of them are scorched, and it's right through the black. So the more interesting thing that we're studying, and we still haven't gotten results, and we're trying to work with this Israeli university on this one because we know the lab director, but they've been busy, as you can imagine. But anyways, the question is, we know that there's something called desert varnish. So when you break open some of these rocks, especially the basalt type, that there's dark on the outside and it changes color. It's still basalt inside. It's not like it's a different rock, but it's like an oxidization, they call it, or a desert varnish that coats and makes this rind around the outside rock. And that naturally occurs around the world. You can look on Google and look up desert varnish or oxidation of rocks. It's all based on the mineral there. So the outside edges are, exposed to sunlight and weathering. So if there's iron, it'll change color. And you break open the rock, it'll be a different color inside. So it's not a supernatural thing right there. The question, though, is, did God's presence, because we don't know how it affected his divine presence, I hope people understand what I'm saying here. We don't know how God's divine presence, his fire, physically affected the physical world. We know at the burning bush, it did not burn. Like Moses could walk up to it. That's why he wanted to check it out, because this bush was on fire, but it wasn't being consumed.
Yeah. So why would this be any different? The presence of God, of all-consuming fire, didn't burn the mountain.
That's the question. That's the question. So physically, there's no proof up there that I know one person put up on. They were being interviewed. I'm not going to mention the name, but he was claiming that you could wash off the burnt. Like he said his friend took it and put it underwater, and he got brought back to the UK, and he washed off the burnt. So the idea that soot and that suddenly it turned back to normal color rock when you wash it, that's 100% a lie. I hate to say it. I'm not going to name him, but the reason why we know that it's a lie is we have tons of this rock, and you can't wash it off, and it doesn't change color. And think about it: 3,500 years of the major storms that hit Jebel Makla, snow,
surely they've been washed by
storms.
now.
I've been there during. Hey, yeah, it would have changed color. Like if it's easy to wash a rock under your faucet in your kitchen, then you could have done it. Like the nature would have done it. So you definitely can't wash this off. Then another person said you can smell it or taste it like it's burnt. Like they even on their TV show, they're like sniffing it. To me, that's just ludicrous. Now there are campfires some people do put up there, but the rocks themselves are natural basalt with the desert varnish. So the question is, did God's presence affect the varnish? Like, did it kind of like at the Split Rock? There's natural erosion going on all the time with that soft granite stone, and so it makes weird shapes out there. You'll see if you ever go out there, like the weirdly shaped rocks with holes in them and all sorts of things. And so we know, like, if there's a flash flood coming through there for a week, like there's rivers of water that God miraculously provides the Israelites, that's going to speed up the erosion process for that week. Well, if the fire God's up there for a year, and if it is physically affecting the rocks, did it speed up the desert varnish and coat that outside so they oxidize faster and versus sitting out there in the sun for thousands of years? So that's the question we don't know, and that's what we would like to test. But it's something that it's kind of beyond the whole the fire god burnt
well, you
the
could go
granite
down
and
a
turn it to
whole
the
big
salt,
rabbit trail with that because you got the whole time issue because God is above all time, space, and matter, and it says that a day, then the life of God is 1,000 years to man. So you get the whole quantum physics rabbit trail here of two times meeting in together, and so there's definitely a big rabbit trail there.
Maybe So the rocks, when the rocks in God's presence are interacting up there, it's like the rocks are thousands of years being exposed to this oxidation. So now you have So that's something we have to test, and we need to see, like, scientifically get random samples, document where we get them from, compare it to other mountains nearby and other basalt sources in Midian around the world. I think that would be the way to approach it. And I've talked to a number of people about that.
It'd be like a time travel,
who
like
have
portal
PhDs
almost, right there.
Well, it's interesting. We had a guy, some people suggested, maybe there's some type of portal there. And then down that kind of same trail, one guy said, well, are you guys getting radiation sickness or like loss of hair? I'm like, well, naturally, before I went to Mount Sinai, I was already losing my hair. That's more genetic. But they asked, there's something like radioactive with the rocks, thinking God's presence is like radiation. And I was like, I don't know how to test, like, for us to test that. I said, I told him, I don't think so, but, we haven't tested it, so I can't say 100%. Well, the funny thing was we were on a private tour. I had two school teachers, one who knew Ron Wyatt and a friend. And so there's four of us. And we did the Exodus backwards. We started in Egypt, and then this is 2021, and then we went to Cairo. So as we're going from Egypt, or from Saudi Arabia to Cairo, so we start in Saudi, we go to Jordan, and in Jordan we get on the ferry to go down to Nuweiba. We're going backwards on the Exodus route. And when we get on the ferry, that ferry terminal, which we didn't know, you have to walk through this like banner thing. What the banner was hiding, what do you want to call it? A radioactive test detector. So we all get through it, and then suddenly we're like, "Where's our friend?" The one guy who's like carrying everything, and he had a bunch of our rocks and everything. And then finally, all these police were coming, and we started asking, like, "Okay, where's our friend and what's going on?" So they brought us to him. He said, "Well, your friend set off the radioactive detector." We're like, "What?" We didn't know they had one. They said, "Yeah, the American government installed it here on the ferry terminal and trained us." And it took us forever to like get like everyone to figure out what's going on, because they said they've never had the detector go off. So they had to go look in their manual, like who to call, what's the procedure if the radioactive detector goes off.
What
and
do
then
we do?
They had a couple of these devices. One was a Geiger counter that had the radiation level, and the other one was this. There was some device, and so someone's going to know it, and we'll have to tell you. But it is a device that it can read like the elements. Like you just pointed at something, it'll tell you like, okay, what element that is. And so like one will tell you how much radiation, and the other device actually said it was like radon like 234, or I don't know, making up something. But I took like one photo, and then the guy, one of these Jordanian security saw me. He's like, "No photos." But otherwise, I was going to document this whole thing. But I got one photo, I think, of the scanner. But they started separating all his stuff in his luggage. So they're like a pile of dirty clothes, camera equipment, rocks.
Hopefully, it wasn't radioactive skid
gear.
marks in his underwear.
No. It thankfully was not. Like, what do we feed the guy? So they scanned everything, and thankfully, we got our rocks scanned for free, and so the rocks were not radioactive. And what set the thing off was, this is so crazy. Like, this is how sensitive these detectors are. Like, in his gear, he had a big duffel bag, was a World War II compass that his grandfather gave him, and back then they used radioactive paint, the yellow paint on it. And that was and they finally isolated the one object, set it aside, and they were scanning it. And that was the thing beeping and causing all the alarm and fuss. So I told my friend, don't bring that ever again. But it's funny, like, I was wondering how we're ever going to get our rocks tested for that, like radioactive. And we got it for free by the Jordanians at the ferry terminal. So, God's, I'll provide a way for you. But it delayed us for like an hour or two, because that was, of course, they're thinking like, "Where are you guys from? Why do you have all these rocks?" And then, why is this radioactive device going on?
Yeah, that's definitely a wild story.
Anyways,
I got checked in luggage one time, TSA, for a big bag of gummy worms. I'm a big gummy worm guy, and I always buy the big bags. And I was going to Florida to meet Hulk Hogan. And I had it stuffed in my carry-on bag. And I didn't think nothing about it. It's candy. And I just threw it in there, and it went through the little thing or whatever, and that thing went off. Everybody starts gathering around. And luckily, I'm from a small town, and my wife used to work there at that airport, so that the officers kind of knew me. And one of the girls that was friends with my wife came up to me. She said, "Justin, I know you don't have any explosives in here, You don't, do you? I'm like, no. She said, well, there's a big blob showing. She said, that looks like C4 in your bag. And I'm like, a big blob? And she's like,
explosive
and then it hit
gummy
me,
bears.
and I'm like, oh, that's my gummy worms. I said, I have them sitting on top. And she said, okay, yeah. She said, that makes sense, but we're still going to have to open it and look. I said, that's fine.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's interesting, like how like these devices are very high tech, but sometimes they're not. They can't tell what is what. Like C4 or gummy worms. Anyways, well, yeah. So we have the rocks tested for that. Anyways, if we get results, we have to get after this lab. They're doing it for free, so it's kind of hard to get them to speed up the process. But if we get anything interesting, we can come back and share with you guys. What's about the rocks. That's the top of Sinai. Let's get back to the base where we'll be there 40 years. So there's a sign, just like they do at all archaeological sites, and this is the fence. This is the one that the Caldwells, Bob and Larry, Bob Cornuke and Larry, they went there in 1988. They all said the whole mountain's, fenced off, and here it is. This is our 2016 trip, and I know we're going to be running out of time. Another time I'll tell this story about the miracle and how the baby goats fits in. This is one of the photos from that story where we ran into locals because I had found some baby goats stuck in abandoned by their mother and at the base of Mount Sinai in a bush. It's like when I heard the sound, I'm like, what is that? I thought my friend was like secretly like making goat sounds to get me like my attention. We were sneaking around. This is before the tourist visas. It turned out to be 2 baby goats just born. Very hungry, and we brought them to this gas station nearby, and we met these locals, and then they didn't know what we were doing. We didn't tell them, so they're like, "Hey, can we show you the Mountain of Moses?" One guy spoke broken English, and we played it dumb, like, "Oh yeah, what's that? Where's that?" And they took us right through the fence. Like we had like 10 of them. I think there's a video of this because I filmed throughout the whole event. It's on my YouTube channel. So we walked all the way to the altar of Moses, but the most impressive thing, besides them saying that this was Mount Sinai, Jebel Musa. They said the one guy explained how like the cows would go down the one part of the altar, which I'll show that soon, the altar of Moses site, and how they turned the corner at the other end where the Saudis had excavated and found ash. He was saying that's where they had sacrificed the cows, killed them and sacrificed them. And so he basically explained the whole thing without us even prompting him. Like we're just acting like we didn't know anything. And here's this local telling us this whole story, and it fits the full account. But yeah, so here are just more pictures. If you go on a climb with us, we do have that extra day at the end. And this is the backside of the Cave of Elijah, looking towards the Black Peak. And at the base there of this mountain, you can see that there is this plateau. I think I have more photos of the plateau. And we call it the 70 Elders Plateau because it's the perfect spot where you can have a picnic with God. It's like the size of a football field. And it's a nice flat area with green. And there's some water seeping out of the ground there. Of course, then here's the view from the top, looking way out into the plain of the encampment. And here's this black rock we've been talking about. It's basalt, but what caused it to be black? We're still testing that. But it's all on the top. Now, the question about if it's natural, how do you get black rock at the top and then a different type below? Well, there is a process. In fact, there's a mountain in Southern California near Needles. It looks just like Mount Sinai. And I've been out there because I wanted to document this geological process. And it's called, I want to say, a roof pendant or rooftop pendant, something like that, where basically the basalt volcanic rock is laid down first. Later on, so for me, a biblical time frame, I would say after the flood, this other type of rock pushes up. So when mountains were formed, like say the granite, the light color pushes up. So now you have this black cap on top of the granite mountain. And there's a mountain just looks 100% like Jebel Makla in Southern California. So that is a natural process there. That's on a second Mount Sinai. But again, here's this oxidation process we're talking about, where this is a really good sample my friend brought down. Sadly, it's his, not mine. But it's nice because you actually see the oxidation going from the black on the outside to a lighter color inside. It's still basalt rock, but it's just change of color. And so we don't know if God's presence sped up that process and made it more oxidized than normal. Here's a really nice sunset photo from the top of the North Peak. where we're looking towards Albada, towards the Red Sea. We're looking west where the sun is setting. And I camped overnight up there on that North Peak. Amazing view, the stars. I was all by myself, just camping up there. Very windy. But so what are the evidence around the mountain? We just looked at the mountain, so now the black top and all that. Well, here we have a bunch of slides, and then we'll be finished. But going through the kind of like the key evidences around the base, as if you're on this tour of Mount Sinai. So the first thing is the plain. You got to have a big enough plain where the Israelites can encamp. Exodus chapter 19, it talks about the Israelites encamping before the mountain. And if you look at Numbers 10, I think, it mentions when they leave. So they're there about 11 months. And so here's the view looking out. From now here we're up at the cave of Elijah, I think, from this shot. And you're looking out, and you can see the plain to the east and even to the south. And here you're in the plain of the east looking west at Mount Sinai there, the Black Peaks. Now here's the southern plain. And even the southern plains are huge, or a lot bigger than the eastern plain. So it's like this mountain is surrounded on 2 to 3 sides with big plains. Again, here's the eastern side. So you have this brush that grows out there. Here's some more. So there's a lot of stuff for the animals to eat. It's not like a desert like some people say out there. Again, look at the view. There's thousands of acres out there. Now, there are a couple, like if you're camped here for 11 months, there are a couple ways to exit this. You can come back the way you came on the north, or you can go east. And what's really interesting, if you go east, there's I think there's about 2 wadis that will let you go through, like these dry riverbeds, these canyons, and that's marking the spot there with the red. And so here is the blue arrows kind of marking where if you go east, look on the right side of this satellite image is this green arrow going up and down. That's an ancient highway. That was a trade route right there. I think, let me see the name. It's called the Butania corridor.
And Moses, he spent time
this
here.
This is from a Saudi archaeological.
So, he Moses spent a lot of time here when he fled Egypt. So he knew about this road.
He would have known which way to go. Yeah, and so when you look at the Israelites being here for 11 months, then the numbers, it says they left Mount Sinai in the year 2. They went to where the trade route would take them to Israel the fastest, the promised land. And what's interesting, when you go east, you hit this ancient trade route. There's full of inscriptions out there, ancient to modern, graffiti. It was an ancient trade route. This is from a Saudi archaeological report, this map right here. You can see where I have circled Jebel al-Lawz. And so when you go east of there to the right, you see that black line with the red text saying the Butani, it's part of the Hizma Desert, but it's on the western side of the desert. And all those dots are archaeological sites, rock art or whatever. And so you can see where, basically, where people are walking up and down there, they're carved their initials or whatever else, graffiti the rocks over the thousands of years.
Doing a little graffiti on the way up.
Would have come out there. Yeah, and so if you're walking through, your kids might be out, as they're walking,
it's like
up
the kids in the bathrooms at gas stations.
And you find that. So
you go to the bathroom stall, put your name, you were here.
That's the thing. Who knows? We'll find out there. Start digging in the sand, petrified bathroom remains.
You think we'll find some other girl's telephone number etched into the stone for a good time call?
Well, call the Amalekites. But it's interesting because when we were first doing these tours out there, we've had people. We don't just have all men wanting to go out there, so we have families or women. And they don't always want to do it camping style and go out there and use the bathroom. And so now, I don't know if the Saudis read our minds, but there are key places throughout this area. There's one in the Hizma. There's one on the north route coming in. And then Al-Bada and Magna have these 2. These are modern Western toilets, sit-down toilets. And that's like a 24-hour almost attendant there. So as soon as you use a stall, he's in there cleaning it. Like they hire all these foreigners to do all sorts of clean and pick up trash in Saudi Arabia and do construction work. But they have this the whole crew that just all they do is wait for someone to use the bathroom. And so now we take people out there, and unless you're camping up on the mountain, because people always email me, what do we do when you go to the bathroom? In the past, we're like, you can find a mosque. If you're in the Middle East, kind of like in America, you find like a gas station, you'll find the bathroom. Well, in the Middle East, if you find a mosque, there's usually a toilet facility near it, because they usually wash their feet and all that type of stuff. And so, yeah, but usually the toilets are just the worst condition, like horror stories. So now, you come on our tours. We have the finest facilities.
Yeah, I've spent some time out east. I know about the squatties.
Yeah, somebody's not used to it. I live in Turkey, so that's the normal type. Is the squatty potties. And I asked my friends, "Oh, what if you're old and you have arthritis? Like these old people, how do they can't squat?" So, what would they do? They we're getting off topic here, but they get a chair and they actually cut a hole in a regular chair. So I said, "Oh, you just made a Western style toilet," and they put that chair over the hole in the ground. And
down in the south, we call them the outhouses. So.
Oh, we had that in the West too, like the ranchers. But there's the things people ask you when you're on a tour. They want to know what are the facilities, how are the food. This is the Hizma Desert. So you read in Numbers chapter 12, I think, it mentions that after they left Sinai, it said they went 3 days into the desert and they were complaining because it was so harsh the way and there's no water. And then it said the fire of God burned on the edges of the camp. Well, you can see why. On our final day of the tour, we actually drive out in this stuff. It's beautiful. A lot of camels out there, beautiful scenery, but very difficult if you were to walk it. Because that sand is just really hard. It's like walking on a beach, and then it's hot, and then there's no water. But here's an overview. That red arrow going up from this area of Mount Sinai along that corridor trail all the way up into the Promised Land. And so it fits exactly what the Bible says. The other thing that's the key feature of Mount Sinai or Horeb is in 1 Kings chapter 19. It mentions a cave on the mountain that Elijah fled to. Yeah, so that's one of the hardest climbs going up to this cave. We do include it in the tour, but not everyone goes up. Some people just stay at the base and just relax or
take
explore.
Take lots of pictures for me.
Sinai, around the altar of Moses. But no, it is because you're going like straight up. Almost in some areas. Thankfully, no one has gotten hurt on these because sometimes, you don't know who's capable of what. And they said they're going up. I said, okay, you got 2 hours, come back down. You can see them going up most of the way because it gets pretty far up there. But I usually have binoculars and I'm monitoring. I don't always go with them. I tell them, okay, I'll climb to the summit with you, but which is like the 2 days later. But this one, only if you need me to go up, then otherwise you're on your own. But what's interesting is that this mountain, like some people will ask, oh, well, how do you know this is the cave of Elijah? Like, who made that up? Well, in the book of 1 Kings chapter 19 mentions the cave. Well, there's only one cave in Jabal Makla. There's some overhangs here and there, but an actual cave that goes into the side of the mountain, there's only one. And so if there's a whole bunch, then yeah, we wouldn't know which one Elijah used. But it's really, a good likelihood that he camped overnight in this cave. Actually, I know a friend of mine, he did this back in 2019. He slept overnight. And I don't know what was going on. He was with another group. They went out. He was with Joel Richardson's group. And I was doing something else for Joel. So I stayed in Tabuk at the hotel. But they had cell service. So he texted me. He said, and he sent me a photo. He was in the cave. And above him was one bat hanging from the ceiling. And in the corner was a giant spider. I don't know if it's one of those like fake, camel spider things, the insects. But anyways, it was there and he was like freaking out. I said, well, enjoy your time there. The next morning, what the crazy thing was the bat was still hanging at the top, but the spider was gone. So I said, I hope he didn't go into your sleeping bag or, you munched on him at 8.
Cleaned out your earwax.
Anyways, I would not sleep overnight. Yeah, I would not sleep overnight. I've done it on the top and on the plateau many times, usually with tents. And only twice I had to do it without a tent because we miscounted tents and we had extra people. So as the guide, I said, okay, I'll sleep under the stars and you guys get the tents. I actually got bit by something. There's something crawled in my sleeping bag and I don't know what it was, but my legs swelled up. And so, yeah, it was the worst. It was a 2-night camping trip. So that would happen the first night. So the second night, I'm just freaking out the whole night. Thinking, okay, what's going to be crawling over? No, it went down. The swelling went down. If it got worse, I would have. But, there was a black dot in the middle, but no, nothing rotted away, thankfully. All the swelling went down. It was a little itchy for, maybe 4 or 5 days. But after a week, it was back to normal. But I felt it bite, whatever it was. Maybe it was a spider. I don't know. there are scorpions there. We've seen snakes, and they say every snake in Saudi Arabia. And I don't want to scare people, but yeah, I've seen I don't know, half a dozen snakes out there, different sizes. They never chase you; they always run from you. But they say every snake you see, assume it's poisonous.
Yeah, you're better off that way.
Here we are in the cave. Yeah, now no one will
like
go
Indiana
camping with
Jones.
us.
Keep them snakes
inside
away.
a tent, you zip it up. So here we go. And this is really cool. So this is looking into the cave. You can actually see the bat dung. You can see bats hanging. You can see on the ground there and all the what do they call that? But now looking out, my friend took this photo where he took a whole bunch of series of photographs and combined the
man, what have you
right now? But basically, so that you have the light, so you get nothing's dark. You can like the
ISO.
Anyways, all the way through
isolation ISO.
Yes, so like so each one has a different one, and then in Photoshop you can combine it, and there's a name for that technique. But like he merged all the photos, so now you have this really good view looking from inside all the way up to the plane. Yeah, the exposure, that's the word. So he just changed the exposure on each one. He shot like 12 photographs or so, like in the same spot on a tripod. But anyways, it's a great. A lot of groups go there. They, you read the story about Elijah, and others just sit there and pray. We usually give them half the day to be up there, just based on time, or you can stay longer and camp on your own. So the plateau, we kind of talked about this. Now, the book of Exodus, chapter 24, right after the dedication of the covenant, and when Moses sets up the altar and the 12 pillars, it says later in that chapter that 70 of the elders and Moses and Aaron and Joshua and I think even Hur went up. But anyways, they say they ate with God. They under his feet looked like this sapphire or lapis lazuli stone, this blue stone. So on Mount Sinai, it's a pretty steep mountain. So for us, the best place that would match for where the story occurred is this plateau, this plain that's halfway up. It's about 6,500 foot elevation right here. Now, the Bible doesn't say Mount Sinai has a plain or a plateau, but it just makes sense. And this is a really nice area. Actually, I was on the verse all this time. I thought you guys were looking at the photographs. Anyways, here are the photos here. You can see the big, nice flat area. Beautiful area. I've camped there a couple times. Yeah, it's something about the mountain. It keeps calling you back. It's a difficult climb, but just to be on it, there's something about it. It's the peace, the quietness, the beautiful area. Now, the Bible does mention a stream. So there was water to give the Israelites water
them
to
smooth
drink.
The rocks. That's definitely a riverbed.
The split rock. They gave them water. Oh, yeah, you can see the rocks are a different color. Deuteronomy chapter 9, and even in Exodus 32 about the golden calf altar, as Moses said he had ground down the idol, the golden calf, and then put it in the brook. And made the Israelites drink it. So there was enough water to make 1 to 2 million people drink. And up this, I think I added a couple new photographs when I was making this presentation for you. When you go up it, you'll find pools of water still there. Some still, little springs seeping out, depending on if it rained or not, how much of the water will be coming down out of there. It's not a flowing stream usually unless there's a big storm, but you see pools of water here. And there's these wild fig trees. Here are the wild figs growing. And it's interesting because, Israel is associated with the fig tree. And as you go further up to a higher elevation, you have these scrawny wild almonds. And I collected a bunch, and hopefully this next year I get some more. This is my first time I've seen it. I knew they were there, but I'd never been up there until September. And then October I went back again. And so we collected a whole bunch during that hot time of the year. The seeds already dried out and kind of popping open there. What's cool about the almonds is that we know that the rod of Aaron was an almond branch, and at the menorah, the 7 branch candlestick that was in the tabernacle, it had the symbols of the almond flowers and leaves in the golden the branches of the menorah, and so the symbolism obviously came from the almond trees that are on Mount Sinai. Let's see, we're getting down to
there's the altar,
slides
right?
Here. Yeah, so now this is where I was mentioning the story of the baby goats, where, Exodus 24 says Moses rose up early in the morning and built an altar at the foot of the mountain. And that Saudi guy, he explained the whole process of the animals coming through on the left side there, and there's a close-up view, and then coming out down to this view here on the right side. And this area where that guy is standing, this on the outside behind him there, that's the area where the Saudis, when they excavated, they found layers of ash. Now, sadly, the report is very brief. It doesn't tell you what type of animals or any other type of testing done, or if they found other bones in the area, whether they're clean animals or like pigs or whatever. So the Saudis' official statement about this site, they say it's a Nabatean worker's house. So, Nabateans being Petra from the time of Jesus, the classical era, Romans. Maybe the Nabateans reused what was already there. We don't know.
Civilizations do that.
We don't know how
culture.
far down this.
They repurpose.
Yeah, they reuse sites. They say, "Hey, this looks great." Yeah, and so it's not ruling out that this was used by Moses. Now, if you watch Tim Mahoney's films, The Patterns of Evidence, he has one expert on there where she designs animal corrals for ranches in the West U.S., and she talks about how when she saw this photograph, she said that looks like an animal corral to her. And that's how she would design it, because you want that. You don't want, to make animals get into an enclosed space, you got to have a way out. So you design like a little corner there. So the lead animal goes in, he thinks there's an exit and keeps walking in, and all the animals behind him follow until they get to, obviously inside there, and that's where they're sacrificed. So, that is definitely a possibility. And then, of course, you just have the locals telling you. Now, of course, if you have a local tell you, you can say, well, maybe he watched a YouTube video. But again, if you look at what people have said
70s, 80s,
in the 80s and 90s, before YouTube was out there and people making these videos, people were saying at least that this was the mountain of Moses. I don't know if they said that was the altar of Moses. No, here's one thing. Oh, when we get to it, I'll tell you. This is about the altar of the golden calf. Something new that, this is some photographs of the rocks, some close-ups. I think this is a drone shot. Kind of gives you an idea. So the altar of Moses is right beside the creek bed, the one where the water came down. And usually in the sacrificial system, in the Israelite, the tabernacle system and all that, they use a lot of water in the temple services. And so right here, the altar, if that's the altar, then you're right beside a water source. Now, there's different views on these. Now, I'll do you the three views, and then I'll let people, do their own, make their own mind up. So when you look at these are the famous pillars. Now, the Caldwells, Joel Richardson, a few others, they say, there are actually 10 there right now. And so there's not 12. There's a ton of chips in these rectangular blocks. But let's just say there were 12. So they say that these are the 12 stones the pillars that Moses set up in Exodus 24. That's the one theory. And then the next theory is Ron Wyatt's. Now, he believed that this was set up by King Solomon's men. So hundreds of years later, 480 years later.
Like the Red Sea crossing site.
Because he said he found a section
another commemorative.
Well, he found another inscription here, and most people don't know that Ron had claimed he had found a section of marble at the base of Sinai that mentions Solomon's name. It was said dedicated to the mountain of God, and it mentions King Solomon. And he said he hid the block somewhere in that area still. He's afraid the Saudis would destroy it. And this was on his 1985 trip, so his second trip there, and when he was with David Fazold. And they camped overnight at the mountain, so they were there a couple days at least on that longer trip. And so, sadly, we don't know where, people have looked, and I don't know, where, it's a big area. Where did he hide that? And I wish he had told somebody. Because that would prove a couple of things. If you have King Solomon identifying this as Mount Sinai, just like the pillar identifying the Red Sea crossing, that would be like a closed case. Okay, this is Mount Sinai. So anyways, that's the second theory.
Or even the very least, Solomon people at that time believed it to be, in the very least.
Oh, yeah. And so you'd think that they didn't lose their knowledge, and if Elijah came through hundreds of years later, after Solomon or whatever it was, so you have this tradition that they unbroken, people knew where it was at until the Middle Ages. So that was the second pillar. Second theory. Now the third theory is the Saudi theory. Now this is all from Nabatean time. This was a mining site by the Nabateans for marble up the mountain. And so they say it's from the classical period, first, second century, BC to AD. So yeah, those are the three theories. I want to believe Ron's theory. It would be awesome. I don't have proof. I haven't seen any. We've looked, but if it's true, then it makes more sense. And I can see where the Nabateans would come along and see marble and could reuse the site. As you said, civilizations do that. And so, did Moses? That's the question. Are these any remnants? Did he go up on the mountain and mine the marble? So here's a statement from Ron's testimony, and from his book, I think this was, and it said it was dedicated to the mountain of God. So that's his claim, but I have not seen. No one's found that piece of marble. The only problem I have with the Caldwell theory, and they're good friends, but even Joel Richardson's, believing that too. If Moses set up these marble columns, they're very heavy. Like one guy cannot move it. Like you try to push it, you need 2 or 3 guys. They're big sections. And we know where they came from. Like, where's marble source in this area? Well, there's an ancient path, you can call it a little road, that goes up along the creek side, all the way up to almost near the summit. So someone built a road, and right up there's still some marble sections left up there, and there's a quarry. And so someone mined this off the mountain. And so there's more than just a couple blocks, round columns at the base. There's a ton of chips. Usually people take a souvenir. And you have lots of these rectangular blocks, big ones. And then you have about 10 of these round ones. So that's a lot of effort. The biblical story, let's see. Did we read the story yet? So there's this, you can see the markings with the tool marks on these. I don't think I have the verse here yeah. So it's part of this verse here. Let me just back up. In Exodus chapter 24, verse 4. So the rest of that verse, it mentions not only that Moses built an altar, but it said he set up 12 pillars. Or 12 standing stones is the Hebrew word. So if we just go back to these marbles section. So here's the photograph of like 4 of them there. Again, if Moses went up and got this from the top of the mountain, he would have to have a bunch of men go up on the mountain where he just told them earlier, don't touch the mountain. You're not allowed to touch it, or you'll be killed. Now they're going to do a big mining operation, and they have to build this path, and then they brought down a ton of marble, not just the 12 pillars, but they would have brought down all these blocks.
I found that verse that you were talking about, if you want me to
there's
read
a lot
it.
of those.
It says,
yeah.
Because verse 4 it says, and Moses wrote down all the words of the Lord. He rose early in the morning and built an altar at the foot of the mountain, and 12 pillars according to the 12 tribes of Israel. And he sent young men of the people of Israel, who offered burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings of oxen to the Lord. And Moses took half of the blood and put it in the basins, and half of the blood he threw against the altar. Then he took the book of the covenant and read it in the hearing of the people. And they said, all that the Lord has spoken we will do, and we will be obedient.
Yeah, so that verse, that part of the verse where it says he set up 12 standing stones or 12 pillars, that if you read that full verse as you did, it mentions that Moses got up early in the morning, built an altar, set up 12 standing stones. It suggests something that he did at the spur of the moment, not a 1 or 2 week operation of climbing up on Mount Sinai and defiling the mountain, but creating this big quarry operation, building a road, and bringing all these Israelites to come up there when no one's supposed to be on the mountain. It just suggests that he built this and plus, it says that they were to use unhewn stones for the altar. So that even kind of suggests that for a shrine or something like the 12 standing stones for a covenant, it's something that tools would not touch. Like it wasn't formed, just a natural stone you set up. And if you look at the whole Exodus account, there's only one other place where they use 12 stones. Here's 12 stones used at the start of the Exodus at Mount Sinai. Jordan. You go to Joshua chapter 5, they use 12 stones at Gilgal from the Jordan River. And it says God told Joshua to have one representative from each tribe, and they're to take a stone out of the middle of the Jordan River, 1 stone per one man, and then they set it up at Gilgal. And Gilgal was kind of where the Exodus ended. That's where they celebrate their first Passover. The manna stops to fall. The men get recircumcised. And so all this happened at Gilgal. And then they set up 12 stones. So if you look at that story, it has to be a stone the size one Israelite man could pick up and carry to Gilgal. Based on the reading of Joshua 5. If you look at these marble sections, these are really, they're worked stone from the very top of Mount Sinai. When you take down this trail, this man-made road they built, that I walked part of that. And then it definitely needs some animals to carry this down, or 3 or 4 guys.
To a layman looking at it.
Yeah, and the style too. So it's nice to, I don't know where the 12 pillars, that's what somebody always asks me, where are the 12 pillars? I don't know. If they're natural stones set up, then they could just blend right in and been knocked over the years. But it's a very popular theory online. You have a lot of videos and people talking about these are the 12 pillars, or the 10 of the 12, because there's not 12. But when you look at the details, it doesn't want to match that. And so, I just throw it all out there. There's the 3 big theories, the Saudi, the Ron Wyatt, and you can call it the Caldwell or theory. And then, people, whatever they want to believe. For me, I lean towards the Ron Wyatt, even though I don't have proof. I didn't see an inscription, but I think it definitely was much later after the Exodus that whoever made these stones worked the site. Let's finish this up here. So these are just pictures of the stones. And you see some of the tool marks on some of these. Of course, the other famous site when you get out there that you want to see and you will see on a tour is the Golden Calf Altar site. This is this natural pile of rocks. But you can see how they could reuse
I've always
it
wanted to ask you about
platform.
this. Because they just come from Egypt. They worship the bull, goddess Hathor. And look, you even have that circle in the center.
Oh, yeah, there's a whole bunch. Yeah. That's the Ra, between the horns, the way the horns are shaped. Yeah, there's a bunch like that. Of course, there's other styles, and there's even some other animals carved on the rocks there, like ibex. But they look like they're different time periods. People graffiti the rocks. But, this is at the base of the mountain. It's a perfect spot. This natural platform to put the Golden Calf altar. Now, here's what's the interesting part, and most people don't remember or know about, is that David Fazel, he was there with Ron when they uncovered it, and it was his equipment that found the site. The locals knew about it, but so what happened, Fazel was at the base of the mountain, like across the valley. And I don't have a drone photo to illustrate this, but anyways, he was across the valley. Maybe I do. Yeah, here we go. So in this photograph, you see where the red is. That red arrow points out the Golden Calf altar site. When you go all the way across the valley, kind of the base of the mountain is the black rock. And then there's this white building right over there. That's the guard shack. And that's inside the fence that they had built around the mountain base. Well, Fazel was over there in 1985 with Ron, and he had this metal detector equipment that he had used on Noah's Ark. And so because he was on this trip, he got invited too by the Saudi business guy. And so he gets in the kingdom, and they ask him, they were impressed on how his, it's like a dowsing rod, non-traditional metal detector, long range, but they were impressed at him using it on Noah's Ark and finding a pattern of metal with it. And that was matching the traditional metal detectors. So they invited him to bring his equipment. And so and Fazel told me this story. I don't know if it's even written in his book or his newsletter, but definitely he told me on the phone about this. And he said they did a test when he got to Mount Sinai. They hid like 10 or 11 gold objects, like rings and such, around. And they asked him to go find it. And he found every single one of them with his little rods, except for one that they hid in a tree. He said, well, you can't do it that way. Like, this doesn't work if you're not going to put it in the ground. So anyways, they were super impressed that he could locate all this. So he used it on the site. And so when he was way over there at the base of the mountain, that's where they started, they uncovered a series of these semicircle or circular double-walled, they're 18-foot diameter, huge, like stone circles on the ground. And it has like 2 types of stones, like big stones going on around the circle, and then in the middle, filler stones, very smaller pebbles. And so anyways, one of them had a gold hit in the middle. And so the Saudis he was with, he had some Bedouin help, and he told them, this businessman from Tabuk, to dig down. And so they started digging in the middle of one of these stone circles. Then Fazel told me he got another hit, and it went all the way out towards this area. Like, they're all focused on the mountain. Ron is at the altar of Moses, but he's getting a hit with his rods that there's a big gold deposit, because with his frequency generator, the way he explained it works, if you know the frequency of the metal, the atoms for each metal, there's a different frequency. So he had it set for gold. Anyways, so he's over there at the base, and he starts walking out across the valley. It's quite a ways. And as he's getting closer to this site, the locals, he wrote this part in his newsletter, he said the locals believed that area was cursed, and they did not want to go with him into the site. So this is before the stone fence was set up or anything. The locals just believed that, this is a local tradition, that whatever was happened there or
So
whatever
you're
that
talking
was,
about next
that's
to
a
this
cursed
white
site.
building?
So if you think that's the golden
Or
calf,
the cursed site? Where's the cursed site?
where was that?
Okay.
Oh, that's this site here with the red arrow. That's where the cow petroglyphs are. And that's what they uncovered. He didn't know what was there. He was just way over here where my cursor's kind of, that white building in the distance at the base of Mount Sinai. See my cursor moving there. Let me go back. Yeah, so that's where he was at when he started. And so then they started walking across the valley, following where the wands are pointing, until they get over here. And again, the locals would not want to go with him. But that's when they discovered the cow petroglyphs. And he said at the base, in between some of those big boulders down underground, is a big gold deposit. And he said that's one thing he left with that he never told anyone about, and he would not share it with the Saudis. But he said, "Yep, I know exactly where there's gold at that site." And no one's excavated the site, so who knows in the future if that would ever be discovered. But anyways, that's the story of how the golden
That's crazy
calf
because
altar
the
was
account,
found.
we just read that he melted it down and ground it up and threw it into the water. So is that the place where they gathered up? Because it says they took off all their jewels and melted them together. Did they lose some?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. It's a big party. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's a big party. Some of it you gave to Aaron to make a golden calf out of, an idol. But it even mentions their gods as if maybe they had other idols formed. Looks it had plural, and the Egyptians had a couple of cow gods. One was the Hathor cow goddess, and the other one was the Apis cow bull. But at any rate, if you think they're having a big party, you can lose stuff in the sand there. Maybe not. Maybe the main cow was ground down. The other ones, I don't know. It's just hard to know until you excavate, what the gold reading is for. But it's interesting. That's how the site was found, though. Whether or not it's actually gold down there or not, but it was because of that they found this whole set of rocks with cow petroglyphs. Now they did show a video of this when they got put under house arrest. They were in Tabuk, the nearby city, the capital city for that province. And the Saudi government flew in an archaeologist from Riyadh University. And this guy, he didn't go out to the site, but he watched the video on Fazl's camcorder of the site. And he, according to Fazl, it matched what Ron said, that they congratulated Ron on his find and said, yeah, you found Mount Sinai. And the guy even said that these were Egyptian-style bulls. Now, when you talk to the Saudis or you read the literature, they'll say these are all Neolithic, which is Stone Age. And so they say it's Old Testament time, so the story's changed. Now, I still believe, like you can even see yourself, that some of these bulls are, look like Hathor. And so if they're drunk Israelites, at a party carving them, they're not going to be exactly the same, everything, you see in hieroglyphs in Egypt. But I do think that these, like for this one, it has that shape of the Hathor. Now, they're like over here, if you're looking at this slide I'm on now, you see these are ibex. They have nothing to do. Like these are a different type of animal. And even these are lighter colors, so different time period that they were carved. Here's another scene. So you have right here with the horns going all the way back. Those are ibex deer. But then you have this one over here on the left. That's a cow with the horns going up like that, like the other horns. Yeah, this one's a little different though. The horns on this one kind of go up and out. I don't know if that's Apis. Anyways, this is one of the bigger ones on there. Now, what's really cool about this site is it does have some rare red painted pictograms, they're called. These are painted onto the rocks. And again, you only find these when, just like I was talking about those Amalekite, long neck painted ones. Just like those, these are found on an overhang, so they've been protected all these years, and so the paint has lasted.
That one looks like a chimera. It looks like a person with arms and a body, but with a bull or deer head. Yeah, like it's flying or floating toward this cow or something.
Well, some of the cows, they're like they're the style where the legs are just one like blobs, like a first grader drew it. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, like this is so faint. It would be nice to get some type of technology where you can scan it and then like bring out, because there's different layers too. Like you see, there's an animal right here with the horns going up, but then right above it there are like two people. And in this one photograph, I don't show the whole mural.
Well, if they find it to be a chimera or some kind of ghost deer chimera, give me credit. I said it first.
We have it on video. It's being recorded. Let's see. We're wrapping this up because it's getting late here. But this is what I want to compare. When it talks about the Israelites at the golden calf altar incident and they're partying and dancing, it talks about singing and dancing and eating and drinking and playing. It's basically a big party. If you look at Hathor, the cow goddess, she was the patron for dancers, percussive music, drums. She was also associated with dance and sexuality, and the patron for artisans. I can't speak. Artisans, musicians, and dancers. And so here's if you look at what she represented, and then when you read in the Bible what happened at the golden calf altar incident, for sure I can see how the god they created, Aaron made for them, was Hathor, and then probably even Apis. Now here's one of the images of her. So she's represented different ways, sometimes with just the two horns, other times has the two horns with the sun disk Ra between it, the round circle, and then even with the cobra head.
Yeah, the third eye right coming out of the.
And here's another one with there's the Ra sun disk. This is her as a chair. I think that was King Tut's chair. Now here's another one. So this one's at Hatshepsut's mortuary temple near Luxor. And here you can see the same style horns kind of going in and out like that, a round disc in the middle between the horns. But you can see where she supposedly gives life to the people, because there's a guy getting milk from her. A human figure, smaller size than what she is in this carving. Now, Apis is the other possible. It mentions in Exodus that has gods plural. So another cow god out of ancient Egypt is Apis, and the male god. And it talks about him being like a creator. So when it says, these are your gods that brought you out of Egypt, this is what Aaron told them. That just crazy to think that they're in front of Mount Sinai, dancing and partying and then worshiping these false gods right in front of the real
after God. Everything they saw, after everything he
and so here are
through.
Oh yeah, and still seen, like the fire was still on the mountain; it had not gone away yet. Yeah. So here's more. These are Apis, different forms for different time periods in ancient Egypt. Sometime again they have the sun disk of Ra in between the horns. Other times nothing, just the horns. And then this is from the altar of the golden calf.
Yeah, it's like Apis is the male version, because I noticed the Apis is has the penis, and Hathor has the udder.
And here's one more. I think it's it might be the same one. Anyways, no, it's interesting. So near here, there's an area that's an ancient cemetery. Now you read in the Bible, and again, I think it's Exodus chapter 32, that you have the Israelites, the Levites, killing off, I think, 3,000 Israelites. Moses asked them who's on the Lord's side. The Levites said they were. Mm-hmm. And they go through the encampment of Israel and kill probably the leaders, those who didn't repent. They said 3,000 people died that day, plus a plague went through the camp of Israel. And so we don't know how many people died from the plague. So where do they bury all these people? Now, right up the valley, a couple miles away. I don't know exactly. I didn't measure on Google Earth, but I should do that. But they have these standing stones. And have this graveyard site that's fenced off. It's an archaeological site. And again, the Saudis, for everything out there, they're saying it's either Nabatean, so in between the Old and New Testament, or it's Neolithic, so way back Stone Age. But everything, this is the land of Midian, so they're saying there's nothing out here from the time of the Exodus, late Bronze Age, the Old Testament time. So that just makes zero sense, So when they wrote the report back in 2003, there's a book called Al-Bid, and half of it's Arabic, half is English. And they mention Ron Wyatt's name and David and Bob and Larry and this whole theory that this is Mount Sinai. Back then, 20 some years ago, anything that was before Islam, before Muhammad showed up in Saudi Arabia, that was basically suppressed. Everything that was pre-Islamic archaeology or history or associated with even
Whitewashed out.
Judaism or Christianity, it was just suppressed, hidden, destroyed, put away. Now it's interesting. The tune has changed. Now, just like Egypt, which is an Islamic country, most people there are, I wouldn't say most, but you have the Coptic Christians. But in that country, it's interesting. They've come and embraced their pagan history, and you'll go to gift shops. They're selling, half-floor cow, things you could buy. They're talking about all their ancient Egyptian pharaohs, and the guides will tell you all about the ancient Egyptian religion and the temples. And in fact, usually after 2 days, I can't stand it. I want to get out of that because it's like brainwashing you almost about their ancient religion. But that's like kind of what Saudis are doing now, where they've gotten to the point where they're embracing it and they're calling like Al-Bada the land of the prophets. Before they would not, like, you get in trouble for talking about Jethro or the Israelites being there, and now they're embracing it and saying, this is where Moses was at.
A lot of Christians that'll pay good money come out here and see this place, so it's in their best interest too.
Yeah, and they're trying to diversify. So the land of the prophet, you could use the other word for prophet. They're trying to diversify from oil, and they're building this big Neom city there that's kind of affecting some of the sites of the Exodus. And so they want tourism, and so they know that they have a lot of faith-based tourist groups. I was interviewed twice last year by New York Times and Newsweek reporters about, why are you doing tours there? What are the Saudis doing? Are they helping you? Are they paying you to say good things about their country? How is this affecting having Christians come there? So it's interesting. People are picking up on it, and the Saudis already are at least promoting some of these sites as tourist sites and protecting them. So just that, you might have a big hotel right next to some of these sites. In the past, like right now, it's nice to go because everything's kind of still virgin territory, so to speak.
Open it up
so you
can, people like us can go see these sites,
Yeah, that was a surprising thing back in 2019, but it's amazing because a lot of people have been out there. I've had babies with parents with their babies all the way up to 83-year-old. We've all the age range and different Christian denominations out there. Mainly, we had a couple Jewish people come on our tours. So a lot of people are interested in these sites and just want to know the history. Just kind of, my last slide gives you an overview of what the base of Mount Sinai. This is the Google Earth with my photographs on it. It just kind of shows everything around that, why we believe that this is the best candidate for Mount Sinai in Arabia. It has all the key artifacts and locations and places mentioned in the story of the Exodus for what happened at Mount Sinai.
Well, Andrew, thank you, man. Really appreciate it. You spent a lot of time with me tonight and explained all this stuff to my listeners. Go ahead and let everybody know where they can find your website, YouTube channel, and information if they want to actually put boots on the ground at this place.
Summertime, we do tours in Turkey because it's too hot to go to Egypt and Saudi Arabia. And then we start again around October. So on our website, you can check out our website for the dates. Go to discoveredsinai.com. That's discoveredsinai.com. And there are a couple tour pages there. We have the Exodus tour. You can combine them and do both back to back. We have dates for also the Sinai and Arabia tour, which covers Saudi Arabia. And then we have a couple new tours where we're covering Turkey. If you don't want if you just want to do one big trip and not come back and forth on the Middle East, we're covering Turkey, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and on one we're trying to see, hopefully by summer we can do Israel, but definitely Jordan. So you can follow the patriarchs, Noah to Abraham, all the way to the land of Egypt and the Exodus, all the way to the borders of Canaan on those longer tours. But yeah, all that's listed on discoveredsinai.com.
Once again, Andrew, thank you so much. Definitely appreciate it. This was so informative, and I love our discussions. And I want you to know I'm really, really thankful that you take the time to do this.
Happy to share and looking forward to sharing some more later.
Well, guys, hope you enjoyed that. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button, share with some family and some friends, give us some 5-star reviews. But until next time, torch is high.